Nothing shocks me anymore. Nothing shocks me anymore. All right, we're going to get this party started shortly. If you could make sure you click in for attendance. Well, all right, I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's 2:33 and it's 84 degrees outside in October. So let's get moving so maybe we can enjoy some sunshine. Make sure you please click in for attendance. Steve Smith, I'm looking at you. And probably some others I haven't caught on to yet. All right, we do have some voting items today, so I want to remind everybody that in order to be able to vote, we need to maintain quorum, which means it's greatly appreciated if you stay. We also have up front, when you came in, and hopefully everybody got a copy, if not, they're on the Senate site, but they are also posted, there's copies floating around, but it's the Roberts Rules of Order. We have a full Senate membership now. It's been a while since we've gone through the Roberts Rules, but there's two documents, one with a little bit more detail and then kind of a cheat sheet, if you will, for how to make a motion, how to ask to be recognized by the chair, different things along those lines. So there's a single sheet front and back. It's kind of like a cheat sheet, and then there's the larger packet with staples for you. I'll leave this up in the background for a few minutes while I go through our updates. We have a Faculty Council of Community Colleges plenary coming up at the end of the week, and Michael Delaney and Erica Hendra will be attending on our behalf, and we'll be bringing back all sorts of wonderful information that they're going to be learning at that event. There's also a SUNY Voices conference in November. It is the 8th and 9th. And it is in Syracuse. And SUNY Voices is the community colleges, it's the universities, and then it's the student government representatives across the SUNY system. So it's a great opportunity to interact with students, faculty from other community colleges, as well as universities. So if anyone is interested in attending that, please let me know. We can send out more information through the CPD office. A couple other things with, now that we're in the full swing of getting back to school, Middle States is over, and the craziness at the beginning of the semester, we do have Faculty Caucus of the Senate meetings, and they are, in general, the first week of the month. Sometimes they are on Tuesdays, but the first Tuesday in November is actually Election Day, and there is no classes that day. So we will be having the Faculty Caucus of the Senate on Thursday, November the 8th. And I just want to remind everybody that it is a great opportunity to come in and hear what's coming up with the Senate. It is a forum that you can bring things to other faculty members that you have concerns with. And if anybody has a topic that they feel is important, or they want to start a task force or a resolution, it's a great body to run your ideas through ahead of time. And it does meet monthly, and there's lots of opportunities to give input into what actually goes on the monthly agenda for the College Senate. And then along those lines, let me see if I can find it. We have been asked, bless you, a few times about how to get on the agenda, perhaps not necessarily with a motion, but to address the Senate. and we never really had a form or a process, if you will, other than emailing me. So Kim Cruel came up with a form. It's on the Senate site, it's under Senate documents, but it's also in October meeting minutes and documents, but it's an agenda item, just what you want to put on the agenda, who's requesting it, and then any background rationale. So it's very similar to the motion form that we already have up there. So you can say, you know, why are you submitting the request? What do you want to discuss? Are you planning on asking for a motion or a resolution? What types of things that are you looking for with the agenda? And of course, this is an open meeting and anything could be brought up at any time during new business, but sometimes people like to throw those things in ahead of time and get it specifically on the agenda. So if that's something that you would like, this is a form that you can fill out and then send it to myself. Michael Delaney?
I just wanted to mention that anything can be brought up under new business by a senator.
Oh, thank you. It can be brought up by a senator to be recognized by the chair. And speaking of which, we do not have a parliamentarian. Michael is working in that capacity for me today, but we do need people or a person to be the parliamentarian. Fabio has helped us out in the past as well, and Michael obviously also knows the rules, so anyone that knows the rules and would like to become the parliamentarian, we are seeking a position for that, to remind me of things like that specifically. Michael?
Or anybody who'd like to learn the rules.
Or that.
How much does it pay?
The same as Senate pay. Double. Yes. It counts for your 91 hours. And then one last thing, and then I'll pop it over to Dr. Hakoy. But it is that time for SUNY Chancellor's Awards. We're going to be seeking a committee. I was talking with Tracy Cleveland with coming up with a committee through shared governance. So if anyone is interested in serving on that committee, we need representation from across the board, different unions, not only just shared governance, but AAECC, FFECC, CSEA, managerial, all of that. So if you're interested in serving in that committee, please email me, and then we'll get that started as well. All right, so with no further ado, I'll pass it over to Dr. Hakoy. I'm also going to shut down the attendance while he comes up. Yep, I'll wait for Greg.
Good afternoon. We had a momentous week last week with Mill Estates, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we will be taken off warning with regards to standards 5 and 6, as the visiting team in their exit interview gave us no requirements and no recommendations with regards to standards 5 and 6. And I want to thank and congratulate all of you for a job well done, for coming together and showing the team a great welcome and what wonderful work we've been doing together. And I think it's evidence what we can achieve when we work together. I want to congratulate especially Fabio and the IRAP team. So let's give them a round of applause. Any questions about that? No. I just have two other items. One is we just got confirmation from Doug Scheit on the weekend that he will be accepting the provost's position, and he will be starting in January pending board approval. So he was the unanimous decision of the provost search committee, and I'm very excited that he'll be joining us in January. The last item is that we have a new chair of our Board of Trustees, and that's Len Lanahan. I was hoping he would be here today. Len? No. So he is replacing Dennis Murphy, and you'll probably be seeing him shortly. That's all from the president.
I'd like to raise an issue.
Sure.
Up until this semester, we had a English as another language lab that provided support for our English as another language students. I would argue a growing component of our student body. Mm-hmm. And recently, a decision that lab got merged in with the English Skills Lab, and then a decision was made not to proctor any exams for English as another language students who requested additional time to complete their exams. And so, in a sense, we've moved from providing maybe one might argue a flawed service to this growing group in our student body to zero service. And I guess I'm raising an issue. I think we need to think this through. We can't just abandon these people entirely. That's what I would argue.
Okay, thanks, Derek. It's the first time I'm hearing of this issue. I'm not sure who might address it. I don't know enough. Just it's the first time I'm hearing it. Yeah. Right. Okay. Anything else? Hey.
I did have a question regarding the Middle States visit.
Yeah.
Can you address any concerns or discussion that might have been raised regarding Standard 7? And if
Right.
there's anything that we're doing to address that currently?
As those of you who were part of the exit interview, the team did have some recommendations with regards to Standard 7. We met with Deb Meckel on Friday, as well as the board for over 2 hours to discuss what implications that might have. We're still waiting for the Middle States team to provide us with their report, at which point we have an opportunity to respond, either in terms of corrections to any errors that we might find, or with regards to anything they might have issue with regard to governance. I think the items they mentioned occurred during their meeting with the board members and with the Academic Senate. I also spoke to our cabinet today about that possibility of maybe some issues coming up with Standard 7. And we're still waiting for the board report, sorry, not the board, the visiting team report. And then the decision of the commission won't come until late November, early December. So it's still unclear what will happen with regards to that. Anything else? Great. Well, thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, so moving along to old business. We are going to pass on the acceptance of the June and September minutes. They're not up on the site yet, so I apologize for that. And I do have Middle States and assessment with Fabio. So if is he here? Oh, there you are. You're in the middle today. If there's anything you would like to add to what Dr. Hokoi mentioned.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, President Quinn, President Hokoi. The biggest takeaway, I think, from all of this is that while we do appear to have done well with regard to Standard 5 and 6, the conversation now and our focus now turns toward the sustainability of those efforts. That's not something that's going to be easy. We do have several years of work ahead of us before we get to the self-study in 2021, 2022. And when we do start to approach that, we'll want to have our evidence already in order so that we don't have to scramble for it at the last minute. So going forward, just know that we are going to try to maintain the structure as much as possible, but we'll also be reviewing it for sustainability, looking for places where we're doing busy work, looking for places where we could do less and get more out of it. And that will be a place where we will invite all comments, both on the Standard 5 and the Standard 6 sides. We do have some suggestions and to review that will likely be coming from the small team and probably from the commission on both Standards 5 and 6. So we'll be taking a look at those and getting those out to the appropriate governance bodies, to Senate, to committees, to cabinet members, et cetera, for review and implementation. Thanks.
Okay. I would also like to take a minute just to also point out that the IRAP team, Fabio's team, the Middle States team did an outstanding job, but I also like to extend our thanks to the assessment mentors that helped work with all the different departments and the divisions to make sure that we all met our requirement of getting our assessment online. I know we have a couple in the room, Erickson, Kathy Colesto, Jason Steinitz. Jason couldn't be here today, but there's a whole bunch of people that also was very helpful in helping us get to our goal to have compliance. Dan, you had a point?
So Deb Meckel, who's been working with Mill Estates and SUNY for a long time, helped explain the suggestion with regards to assessment. So Mill Estates apparently will tend to follow this pattern, which is you're not doing enough, you need to do more. You're not doing enough, you need to do more. You're not doing enough, you need to do more. And then all of a sudden, you're doing too much. It's unsustainable, right? So we've reached that last stage, which is actually a good position to be, because we can now streamline our assessment processes so that it's meaningful and impactful and sustainable. So it's a great place to be. And again, thank you all for getting us there.
Okay, so a big player in the game was our General Education Committee, and there's a lot of work done with that group and with the ILOs, and we have Erickson Nealons here to talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and honestly, it really is a college-wide involvement that got us, I think, to where we are here today. The collaborations amongst a number of committees is really incredible to see and inspiring, to be honest. One thing that we recognized as a committee going through this assessment process is a lot of questions actually as to what our general education requirements are as it relates to all the different degrees. Previously, you probably were aware of the pyramid scheme that we had, and I think it still was a sufficient model to use, but it also, I think, raised concerns or questions with it. So myself, Bill Falls in physics, who is also helping chair general education, along with Fabio and others, what we decided then was to create a tool, a visual tool, that would help units to better understand, based on their degree that they offer, as to what exactly are the general education requirements they're expecting. And they can be broken down into two broad categories. You have the SUNY general knowledge requirements, that's the SUNY side of things. And then you have the SUNY ERIE ILOs, and I'm not a marketing person, but my best attempt was we bold and make bigger the ERIE ILOs, even though we are a SUNY institution. These are our kind of ones. These are our Middle States ones, and these are the 8 that you now will see, the 6 that we currently have, and then the 2 new ones that will be fully implemented in spring of 2019. One of the things that I certainly have learned going through this process is really getting involvement in others, and it's really been a profound experience to do. And so here I wanted to bring forward to you, and thanks with Colleen's assistance, this tool so that now everyone has access as to what these competencies are. And you will also find some tips here as to how to help with some of these different competencies. So for example here, by taking 2, for example, basic communication classes, a math class, a natural science class, you're going to be able to fulfill many of these SUNY ERIE ILOs. So this way it's hopefully what we see as a tool to be able to help all departments as it relates to what exactly are the general education requirements. Any questions, at least, on this document? This is what was shared at the breakout session, if you're able to attend during Convocation Day. This is also available on our Gen Ed page. We hope that it's a valuable resource for you. If you have any questions or concerns with it, certainly we're open to feedback, but we figure that this would hopefully spell out better what exactly the Gen Ed requirements are.
Fabio?
Erickson, do you have advice for units that now need to review their curriculum offerings in preparation for the 2 new ILOs? We have a deadline of fall 2019 for implementation in all academic programs. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think it's something that all units should be doing, and I think there is evidence of continuing to do this. One is with the implementation of the new English sequence that many units are adopting. You will find that the English 100 and then the English 101/102 will provide those 2 at the moment, the ethics and values and global perspectives. So that is one way that I think you will see. I'm not speaking on behalf of many units. Of course, they have the decision. But I think that is one place that you will see that if you're already doing the 110 and 111 sequence, you'll be able to add these 2 in seamlessly. So I think that's going to be what most take if I had to speculate. The other is, and I think this was a big takeaway after last week, was we've done a lot of work. Now is the time to ask ourselves why and how are we doing this? So I also see it where let's take a look at each of the requirements that our courses have for our students to earn their degree and start purposely and meaningfully look at the courses that we offer and say, is it fulfilling this ILO? If not, then let's make an argument to remove it. Let's make a logical argument to it. Let's make a meaningful argument to remove it. If we do feel that it is something that is satisfied, one thing that's also going to be talked about in just a minute here is we're creating and hopefully finalizing these rubrics soon for each ILO. Use that as a gauge for units to help determine, are we fully satisfying this ILO, and then creating assessment for it that's meaningful to us. If we feel that both of those things help, then we should be able to address all 8 of these, I think, pretty meaningfully and pretty seamlessly. Other questions?
All right, so with,
See John.
is there one?
Oh, okay, I hate to ask this question, maybe Fabio or Erickson. Next year at this time, what should we be doing with Middle States per department or curriculum?
Let me start, and please chime in. I would say, John, that what you want to be doing is right now, this year, you want to be reviewing your assessments, your competency assessments, making sure that you have a plan in place to continue to sustain that assessment work. I would advise most units to simply put themselves on a 4-year plan. Assess all of your competencies within a 4-year period that leads into your program review year. That's usually the best approach, because then you'll use that report out year, the program review year, to report out on those assessments. And we will have conversations about assessment, program competency assessments at those program reviews. So that seems to be the best sort of rhythm for units to get into. Assess at least some competencies every year. Assess them all within that 4-year cycle. And then use that 5th year for reflection and review. To assess sustainability, to determine whether you should be making any pedagogical changes, any curricular changes, etc. And then also, as part of that, start to have the conversations about how to ensure that those 2 new ILOs get into your curricula. Remember, every 2-year program must meet all 8 ILOs, must teach all 8 ILOs or offer all 8 ILOs within the curriculum of the program. That's for 2-year programs by fall of 2019. That's the board's requirement and its resolution passing the new ILOs. So fall 2019, all 2-year programs should have all 8 ILOs in place somehow in their curriculum.
And I agree with much of that as well. To me, I think one of the important steps first is exactly as Fabio said, make sure that your curriculum does in fact fulfill all of the 8 ILOs. Again, as Fabio mentioned here, it's you have to be either teaching it or make sure that you are offering and requiring the courses that are fulfilling these ILOs. English, I think, is a remarkable example of where they've identified weaknesses in their current sequence, made changes, and are also now implementing 2 of these new ILOs in that English sequence that we will be adopting. The one thing, though, I would say is I hope that we also, this is my second, maybe more lofty goal, have more meaningful and relevant discussion and thought about the ILOs, because one thing that we're going to be discussing with Gen Ed is right now it becomes very clerical in the sense of I'm going to document this and I'm going to remove this. And I think something that came out of last week was let's use this as an opportunity and let's think more meaningfully about the actions that we're taking and what the long-term consequences could be as it relates to these ILOs. So is it where by changing this, modifying it, removing, is that something that is accurately reflected in this change? And so I think having more conversation about this, I honestly look forward to the data that we get on these ILOs and working with all these units to be able to figure out how we can improve student learning on these. That's something I think that we'll see. And I think the creation of these ILO rubrics is a good testament to that. And that we've gotten feedback from units. We're getting feedback from here, and we're going to request feedback from each of you to be able to see things that you want to change and implement as we go forward starting to use these.
Jim?
Erickson, in reading that, if we want to remove ILOs from a already approved course, we have to go through CWCC?
I will let Brian actually speak to. I'm not putting you on the spot, but this is something I think that he would be able to better address.
Right.
Yes, ultimately we'll have to approve those. We're trying to, I think, work with Erickson's committee and Fabio's office as well to get this process down. But we got to be a little bit careful about just removing some of these ILOs, just carte blanche.
But understand, we were told 5 years ago, if you think you're teaching it, put it in. So when we rebuilt, in our curriculum, we rebuilt it, a lot of them were put in because we were directed to probably do so and would be better to do it. Now you're saying that all of our course outlines would have to be resubmitted, taken out, and we have to justify that to you. I'm just playing devil's advocate. So what are the chances between that happening and with every curriculum with 3 campuses being approved and done for fall 2019?
I think that's certainly a good point to bring up. And we do have to get this process down, how we're going to approach it. The reason we had this statement that Kathy Klesto and I put together was brought up at our meeting last week, that for certain service courses, this could cause negative effects for some of our students. So let me just give an example, all right? If nursing takes any of their nursing courses and rearranges or removes some of their ILOs, that's not going to affect the general public. That's only going to affect nursing students, but their enrollment to those courses is closed off only to nursing. If the math department decides to remove the quantitative reasoning ILO from statistics or college math 1, that's going to have a massive effect on the students in many, many degree programs. So what we're saying here, I guess, in the statement is be careful, and this is really kind of geared toward service. This statement, I guess, is more geared toward service courses and units that offer service courses. Let's take a little bit of caution, because I know, yes, we were told to add them, and then now it's been repeated in the Senate forum multiple times that if you're not using that ILO, to remove it. But we got to be careful.
Sabrina?
I hope I addressed your question.
My recommendation about that, I know you've already discussed this, but that we are currently in more danger from being dinged from middle states for not assessing courses that claim to be delivering ILOs that aren't delivering ILOs than the kind of thing that you're thinking might happen. I mean, right now, outside of, if you look at the chart, right? You need a math course, you need an English course, you need a natural science course, and then it's just technologies. So this doesn't apply to most of the courses at ECC. My suggestion would be to not implement your new plan until maybe the fall of 2019 to give people a chance to clear the slate and get a lot of the unnecessary ILOs out of the way. And then I think at a certain point when we've established here are the courses that really deliver the ILOs, then I think your new procedure is warranted, because you're right, you certainly wouldn't want math classes taking out a quantitative reasoning ILO and leaving people stranded. But right now, I think there's just way too many ILOs that are not necessary, and the real concern is being able to assess those if we need to.
Derek?
I'll speak for social science. We have been told to strip out ILOs if we didn't think we were providing the full ILO in that particular course. And what we've chosen to do is concentrate and we have 2 courses, general psych and sociology. Most of our students take one of the 2. We're going to concentrate our assessment on those 2 courses. We're trying to, actually at suggestion, we're trying to change the course outline for our government class and put more theory into it. And we can't do that because it's been rejected because we stripped out an ILO. I would argue that there's a difference between a social science course, which most students need to meet the SUNY Gen Ed requirements. They need at least 1 social science. Not need, but how do I say it? Most likely going to take a social science, and most likely going to take 1 of the 3 histories. And the ILOs that predominantly the math courses, the English courses, are providing the ILOs for the college. So we need to change our government course and put the emphasis on political science theory, and we can't do it because we've we have been rejected because we took an ILO out at the suggestion of our advisors because we were probably not offering the full ILO.
Kathy?
The rejection of the course was not based just on the ILOs. So there was other comments sent back. I don't think it was, Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't just based on the stripping of the ILO, though it did raise this question in our concern of courses that are serving other departments may be fulfilling ILO requirements that you're not aware of in other degree paths, and we need to take those into account. And I think Sabrina had a good point on how we could address this in a little different way that I think the committees should talk about when we meet again.
Brian?
Yeah, so I agree with everything Kathy just said. I guess in regard to that government course, and this would apply to any other one, yes, can you guarantee any other degree that requires a social science can still meet all their ILOs by removing that from that one course? That was our concern. Is every possible path to graduation for a degree that requires social science electives, are they going to be met with that removal?
Derek?
My understanding was English was solving the critical analysis and reasoning ILO. And most of the programs require the 2 Englishes.
Cooper?
You know, we just got this email today about the American government course. So, I mean, one, it seems to me to be trampling on academic freedom in terms of dictating to individual faculty what they should or should not be putting in this case, American government course, or how it should be changed. And, you know, you just, the idea behind this was to simplify what we're actually accomplishing in these courses in terms of the learning outcomes. And now to say you can't do that is silly.
Erickson?
Yeah, and I think this is it's a challenging process, right? Because there's both sides to this that we want. But I think what's really remarkable here is having a conversation about it. Let's be meaningful about these thoughts. It's not to police it. I don't think anyone here is going to be upset with work that you are thinking about with ILOs. But I would rather see conversation about this that becomes fruitful, that leads to meaningful discussion about should we be doing this, versus it just being a mandate. Because I agree with you, Cooper, that if it does become kind of a policing of this, then what happens if someone else now wants to make a change in the future, right? Then we're kind of at the mercy of them. But I think it really becomes when we're making these decisions, and if we go back to the SUNY Erie Cares, right, and the E part I'm paraphrasing here with the Excel, there's multiple ways that we can address these ILOs. What's going to be best for our unit? What's best for our students? What's best for their success? Is it the removal of the ILOs? That's a great question for your unit to decide. Is it where now you change a course so that it does fully satisfy an ILO and we assess it? I think that's where it's the units have the decision for that. We're here as a resource to assist with that conversation. But I think the more conversation we can have about this and more meaningful way of thinking about it and the long-term ramifications of these decisions, I think that's a great goal.
Sabrina?
One other thing is that if anyone should be requiring American government to fulfill an ILO, that's an extremely bad move, and I really doubt that that's happening, because that's an elective course, and we can't guarantee that that course will necessarily run from semester to semester. This SUNY requires for the AA and the AS degrees that every student takes a math course and an English course, and that's why those courses are always going to be very reliable to deliver those ILOs. But as far as like embedding ILOs into electives, I'm not even certain every social science student takes an American government course. So I really think that course is not very appropriate to deliver ILOs.
So I don't want to take too much more of your time, Colleen, but I don't disagree with any of that, but that was not explained to our committee when looking at that particular course. So I'm happy to talk with it outside of here, and not to say that we wouldn't approve that with this explanation, you know, with that description, explanation.
Cooper?
But again, we have today's edict in the form of an email saying we do not approve the revisions to the American government course. So you got somebody outside of our department acting as a judge, gatekeeper, whatever. I don't think that's appropriate.
Okay, I sent the decision to the committee. Again, I don't want to take any more time. If we want to talk about it after we can, it was a committee's decision. And again, we're happy to revisit it.
Okay. All right. So moving on, you guys will have a meeting and discuss it further. But CWCC is the curriculum committee of the college. So any new curriculum outlines, et cetera, do go through that body. And they are the governing board of that. So with that, I have Academic Integrity Task Force update with Erica Hendra.
So our last meeting in September was really like a hardcore drafting meeting, and so that's where we are. We're still working on a draft of an academic dishonesty form. That's being updated with the task force, and then we also started drafting the process for adjudication procedures of both academic dishonesty issues and student code of conduct disciplinary issues. So both of those procedures are being drafted. We should have drafts ready for the Senate to look at to give us feedback on both in November and December. And we've realized over the course of the past couple of months that the work of academic integrity does not stop with this task force. We feel that all of a sudden we've opened up a far larger can of worms. And so by the end of December, we're going to be asking, I think, the Senate to consider us as a standing committee rather than just a task force anymore. Since it's an ongoing issue, we have to interface with an awful lot of other departments in order to get our job done. We feel that we'd rather have more time and be a standing committee. So that will also be kind of coming up in the future for us. Any questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Erica. Okay, we also have an update from our academic roadmaps task force, and he told me how to pronounce his name earlier, and I wrote it down, and now I'm nervous that I'm going to mess it up, but it's Andy Anesi. Oh, I got it right the first time, Anesi. So, Andy, thank you.
Thank you. The Roadmaps Committee has been meeting monthly leading up till this month. Currently this semester, we've got 5 programs on board in the development of academic roadmaps. Those include early childhood, childhood ed 1 through 6, culinary arts, business, and health and wellness. All have agreed this term to work with us to design the roadmaps. Counselors Alex Edward and Kim Cruel have agreed to serve as representatives to answer transfer-related questions for the programs that are developing those roadmaps. Deb Schmidt and Becky Camilleri have agreed to answer questions about articulation agreements as those apply to those roadmaps. Erickson Nealons and Bill Falls will serve as a resource for faculty that have questions related to SUNY Gen Ed requirements, as well as the ILOs while they build their roadmaps. And lastly, if there are any departments looking to be involved for next semester, please feel free to submit your department information to myself, Colleen Quinn, or Katie Marshall.
Anyone have any questions for Andy Erickson?
I just want to acknowledge that this is, I think, something that's really quite productive as a result of this process going forward, was that Katie Marshall reached out to us to be as a resource for this, and I think that this is a great example of that continued collaboration to have these more meaningful conversation about these ILOs and the SUNY Gen Ed requirements. So I think this is phenomenal, and I appreciate the opportunity.
Okay. Michael Rio?
Can you tell me more about how articulation agreements are being reviewed through this committee? I guess my understanding is that articulation agreements are typically arranged between academic units and schools in which they're transferring from their program too?
And my understanding is that is still the case. The committee here is utilizing those articulation agreements just as simply as how the courses are going to move forward from SUNY Erie. We are not in the process of evaluating those agreements currently. My understanding was recently Dr. Smith had asked the departments to review their current agreements, and any changes, I guess, would be then followed up on at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Andy? Okay. Okay, so we're going to move into new business, and we have a resolution to create 3 additional at-large senators, and I'm going to call on the Governance Committee and Michael Rio to discuss it.
This proposed resolution addresses growing interest in participation in the College Senate, and as part of our mission statement, which is to encourage a growing body of collaboration. Having a full body at this time, we thought it appropriate to add some at-large seats to accommodate those members of our college community that are interested in participating in College Senate. So these seats would be introduced after this resolution is passed. They would be filled by appointment, and then they would circulate into the next election cycle, so they would be open to anyone in any job category or collective bargaining unit at the college to apply for and seek nomination for. And those elections would be in April.
Thank you. So this is the resolution. It is a bylaw change. So per our bylaws, we need to introduce it 1 month ahead of actually voting for it. So at that point, if there's any discussion or comments or anything along those lines, I would encourage people to attend the Faculty Caucus at the Senate meeting on November 8th, or personally email me any comments or feedback regarding the at-large seats, and then this would be something that we would vote on in November because it is a bylaw change. And to reiterate Michael Rio's point is that it would be open to any employee of the college. So anybody that receives a paycheck, period, would count as a candidate for the at-large membership and positions. We will fill them by appointment if the resolution is in fact passed, and then the seats will be voted on in the spring elections. Michael?
So I don't know if this is a point of order. I believe we have a provision in our bylaws to add seats. So I believe, could vote on this today. It's not a bylaws change. It's a recommendation for adding seats under a provision that we have in our bylaws currently.
Okay. So would you like to make a motion?
Yes. So the motion would be to approve the resolution to add 3 at-large seats as represented in the document on the screen, and we move to discussion, I guess.
We need a second first.
Oh, thank you.
Cooper? Is there any discussion on the motion? Marlene? You need to talk in the microphone.
Is it a voting position?
Yes. Yes.
Just a quick question. Who's going to make the initial appointees? Who's going to select them?
I will.
Oh, okay.
I think it says it. It's in the bylaws. I'm like, I know it says it somewhere. Sabrina?
We've been in a position in the past where we have had to kind of look under rocks to find people to participate on the Senate. Are we going to have trouble fulfilling these positions in the future if we create them now?
You know, I don't believe so. Just based on emails and things along those lines that I have received from other constituent groups that are interested in serving on the Senate. We have a lot of adjunct faculty. We have a lot of AAECC members that also attend and want to be voting members of the Senate. And this would also open it up to students that are employed by the college that are not necessarily SGA vice presidents. So CSEA members and security, maintenance, anything along those lines would be included as a voice for the at-large membership. John Dana?
Worthy of noting that the at-large position is a 3-year term, correct?
Yes. When we did a call out for the Senate, because we had seats that were open, we actually have a list of extra people that we couldn't fill for the appointments that were open. Fabio?
Just want to make sure I understand what's being modified. The bylaws specify that there will be an additional 2 elected at-large voting senator positions. Is that being modified by this resolution or not?
It will raise it to 5.
Okay, so there is a change to the bylaws? I want to make sure I understand what's happening. It looks like a change to the bylaws, but I'm not clear on what point Mr. Delaney and Mr. Rio made.
Michael Delaney?
There's a specific provision in the bylaws that says that the College Senate can add additional voting seats or additional Senate seats in any category by a simple majority vote of the Senate. I am interpreting that as being something separate from the other bylaw changes, because it is specifically mentioned in its own area. So that was my reason for saying that I believe that this vote can take place now. Yeah.
That's what I was confused by. I just wasn't sure if that was being modified. It sounds like the motion modifies that provision of the bylaws?
No.
It does not?
No.
So that provision will remain, and the bylaws will continue to state that there will be 2 elected at-large voting senator positions?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought you meant it's modifying F. It's not modifying F. It actually is modifying E.
Okay, so there's a bylaws change?
Yes.
Okay, understood.
Okay. Well, I just, as acting parliamentarian, I just gave my rationale for agreeing with Mr. Rio that we can vote now, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense that there's a specific provision for one kind of bylaw.
Do you know where that is in the bylaws?
But it's up.
Colleen.
Parliamentarian does not rule, only the chair rules.
Someone Colleen for me.
F, number F.
Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say
above.
F, yeah.
Or letter F.
Letter F, yes.
So we are modifying under this bylaw, and it is correct that the total number of at-large seats will change, but that's not the act of a bylaws change. It's an act under provision F or Article F that we are adding seats by a simple majority rule of the Senate.
Yes.
But it does say 30 days notice to all senators, so.
It does say that.
The chair rules.
It does say 30 days notice to all senators. So I'm going to
We
move.
didn't get that in there. Thank you.
that?
Thank you for the correction.
Sorry. Thank you for looking it up for me. It does say with 30 days notice to all senators, so I'm going to rule to move it for a vote. Where?
30 days notice refers to special meeting. With unfortunately a misplaced comma.
I was going to say, well, and there's a comma there.
Yeah, right.
There's our Oxford comma, people. It means 30. I'm going to go with, I have a math background, but I also understand commas. So, and there's some English faculty right there and a librarian. So I'm going to go with, there's a comma. It says 30 days notice to all senators after the comma. So we're going to move that to a vote for November so that we can keep everything in line with the bylaws. But are there any other questions about this proposed vote in November? Well, all right. Oh, yes, Greg.
So are we going to vote on
In November. So per the bylaws, we need to present a resolution once and then give 30 days before the next vote. So the next vote will be in November. I also have a lawyer over there nodding, so I'm like, all right, perfect. Feeling much better about my ruling.
I got that, except I thought there were 2 steps to this. You're saying
Yep, just, well, step 1 is we're throwing it out there for everybody to look at today, and step 2 will be voting in November. Okay. Yes?
I'm just going to throw that out there because I'm getting just a little confused by E. Are we also, I mean, since we're doing this 30 days now, should we be looking at whether or not we really are changing E? Because they read almost identical.
We are changing E.
So we're changing both E and F then? Not changing F.
Just changing E, and
okay.
F allows us to do it. Right, we're acknowledging F, that's the justification, but we're changing E. Yeah. Fabio?
Thank you, Chair Quinn. I think what might help in this case is just some proposed language in the next day or two to the effect of changing E and just making that 205. Mm-hmm. I think if we can do that, then we'll have the 30 days notice before the November 11th meeting, I think it is.
12th.
12th, and then that'll satisfy the bylaws, I think.
Okay, perfect. Derek?
And I would just suggest if that paragraph, excuse me, if that comma causes grief for us, maybe we should kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get both of them dealt with.
Eliminate it? Okay. All right, so everybody watch your email. When I send out the staff all email, I will have the updated language reflect the discussion today. And all right. Like, where are we now? All right. So we have another resolution, and this is to create a task force on advanced studies. Adrian Rannick worked with, oh, I spelled his name wrong. Adrian Rannick worked with Deb Schmidt and with FFVCC and shared governance officers, and Deb is here today to talk to us a little bit about it.
Hello. We're proposing a motion to develop a task force for advanced studies, and the task force would be made up of a variety of people at the institution, including the faculty, the staff, the enrollment management, public relations, and the registrar's office. We kind of want to brainstorm about how to increase advanced studies, even though we have been increasing advanced studies over the last 17 years. Again, I think it goes back to the more involvement, working together. When I go out into the high schools, I really need to recruit for advanced studies for the institution, and I can't really recruit individually by departments, so I need help. So it'd be great to have some faculty who are willing to go out there. We can brainstorm, put together a marketing plan, and develop how we want to move forward.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to create a task force for advanced studies.
Beautiful. And a second? Thank you, Gordy. All right, any discussion on the resolution? Well, all right, that's great. So we do have a motion also ready to roll on the motion form, and it has the same wording. And since we are ready to vote, what does that mean? We're just going to ignore that. This one. I have a cheat sheet up here too, and clearly I need to take better notes. Okay, so A for yes, B for no, C for abstain. You'll see your vote highlight. Or not if you're me. Here it is. I know.
So that's it, Paul. We added you on here.
All right. Looks like we still have a couple stragglers. All right. I think we're good. I think we all voted. Okay. So with so that is 98%. So the motion passes. So we will be establishing a task force for advanced studies. I know part of the conversation came about because we have several parallel initiatives going on across the college to increase advanced studies by division and by department, and then, of course, by campus. So the idea of the task force is to collaborate all those efforts into one body, under one umbrella, as a group effort to help with enrollment for the college. So thank you, everybody, for your vote. Cooper?
Minor point, but that previous motion about the senators, do we have to withdraw it or table it, or it just goes away?
I ruled that it was going to go to November.
Okay.
So hopefully that, it was tabled. Postponed. Postponed. Man, I got confused by commas. All right, where are we? All right, Phil Struble, you're up.
Thank you. I'll be brief. Just a reminder that we have our open houses coming up this month, October 22nd at City Campus, October 23rd at North, and October 24th at South. A little change in format and how we've done things from the previous years. We're inviting everyone to table. There'll be a sign at each campus in either the cafeterias or the atrium by program, and they'll be set up by division for all academic programs as well as student service areas. If you need any kind of special accommodations for your program in terms of you need power or setup for some kind of displays, please let us know ahead of time. Also, if you plan on showcasing a lab, let us know and we'll add that to one of our tour stops. We do appreciate everybody's getting back to us so quickly on everything. We've had a great response so far. Open House is our highest yielding enrollment event, so your participation is critical. So thank you very much. That's all.
Yes?
Just what time of the day are those open houses?
They're 4:30 to 6:30. There is a staff reception at each campus at 2:30 ahead of time.
Perfect. Any other questions or comments for Phil regarding open house? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Okay, we also have a marketing and communications update from Paula Sandy.
I'm sitting in the seat because nobody else got up today, but we all know how much I hate sitting here and not being in the front of the room. So anyway.
But you can come on up.
I'm going to come up.
Come up.
And thank you for letting me go before her, Kelly.
Sorry, it's that marketing thing. I like to see everybody's faces when I'm talking to you. So a couple of quick updates for you. I swore to Colleen I would stay to 3 to 4 minutes, so we all know how I talk. That's probably 5 or 6. Okay, not. Okay, really quick on the branding. So we've been doing a lot of work on updating a lot of our promotional materials over this past year with new logo, but also the new look as well. We still have a few materials out there that need to be updated. And we've been doing a complete inventory on everything, so that's one thing that's new for marketing. We actually didn't have an inventory of all the product out there in the past, so when it came time to update things, we didn't necessarily know what was out there or what to look for. So that is one thing that's changing. We're actually also going to be doing a new software system fairly soon. I just need to get it before the board, but that's going to make everything a lot easier on all of you. So hopefully within about 2 months, I'll be able to walk you through that here at a Senate meeting. One of the other things that we're doing, because we've done so much work over this past year, there are a few jobs that got lost in the shuffle and that have been still sitting out there. So I'm doing some outreach right now for the jobs that are still hanging out there. Erickson, I know yours is still sitting on my desk in a pile, so not your fault, mostly ours. But we are trying to catch up on things, but if there is something that you had reached out to us about and you haven't heard anything recently or it's not closed out, feel free to contact me. And I will do my best to get you moved to the forefront so we can close projects out for you. A quick update on the website. So that was a big part of the branding piece. We ran into a little snag a few months back with our webmaster retiring. So it got tabled, that design portion got tabled for a little bit while we reorganized the department, and we are in the process of hiring somebody there, but I'll be bringing some part-time help in to help us get moving on that website. So we are still on target for the early part of next year, probably just not as early as we thought. We'll be working with the admissions team to make sure that when we are ready to roll out the new website, we do so in a manner that's not going to impact enrollment or admissions. So we'll keep you updated on the timeline for that, but that is going to require a lot of content update to the website as well. So we'll be working on that over the next few months. So some of you may be getting some outreach from us in those areas as well. We are in the process of scheduling a whole host of photo and video shoots on all 3 campuses right now to get our libraries updated. And a big part of that reason is that we want to introduce a lot of new communication tools this year that we haven't necessarily been using as much as we have in the past, and social media being one of those. So we have been a lot more active on social media recently, and you'll see things popping up on Instagram like photos on the quad this morning, or I don't know, Chair Quinn on College Senate this afternoon for Instagram. But we're actually trying to be more active with that. And when I come back up in a couple of months to give you an update, I'm going to walk you through strategically where we are. But what we're able to do is kind of create a theme for every month that's going to tie a lot of our individual programs into our regular posting for social media, as well as what we're doing on campus signage, as well as what we're doing on the website. So you're going to see much more cohesion in the way we're doing marketing this year. I introduced a little bit of it last year, but this year is like a full court press for what we're going to do from a marketing strategy moving forward. So I welcome feedback on that as we get more into it, but you guys are always welcome to call me and ask questions. And one other thing very quickly, campuses. As we've been wandering campuses in the last couple of months, I'm noticing a lot of very old banners and photos and things of that nature. So I'm working with facilities. We are actually going to be replacing all of the banners you see across the campuses, that not just because of the old logo, but also because they're very dark. So there's a lot of the architecture in the background, but not necessarily student images. So when you look at things like the Veterans Affairs banners, and I'm not picking on them because I talked to Dan Frontier about it, and he's excited that he's getting new banners. We're going to be putting new banners up around campuses. So all of these things are going to be redesigned. You'll see them for international students. You'll see them for veterans, like I said. There are the opportunities programs that we offer. So a lot of these things are going to try and spruce up the campuses a little bit. So departments that are going to be impacted with some of the banners, we will be reaching out to you because we'll be designing those pieces and looking for feedback from you before we produce anything. But we're trying to be strategic and where we're placing them as well. So maybe we can avoid a lot of the stuff that's taped up to the walls. So any questions for me? Nope. Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. 4 minutes on the dot. You did good. All right. I love it when people stick to their timelines. All right, so as far as new business, that's all I have for the agenda. However, it is 3:36. We do have time, and this is the portion of the meeting that we can open it up to new business. Andy.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to bring some concerns to the floor today. There's been some really sort of alarming trends going on in support services and additional duties hours. I've been working as instructional support specialist in the Writing Center since February 2014, and I've come to rely on those non-instructional hours for a fair amount of my employment at this college. And what it's served to do is to keep me on campus in a capacity that my students can find me in ways that if I was just offered 1 or 2 courses a semester, I couldn't do. And the Writing Center has been building a rapport with adjunct faculty and staffing them in a professional manner in a way that makes me confident sending my students to those support services, because I know they're staffed with professionals who can provide not just peer tutoring but direct one-on-one instruction. And those hours have been tenuous for a while, and I've seen pushback on them for a while, but especially in this last semester and a little while before it, I've seen those hours become destabilized and disrupted. Our hours have been shortened and defined for us, and I've seen funding requests denied for my peers who want to work with us in a professional capacity, and it's not really clear where that's coming from to me, but it's not from our academic unit that should be controlling this tutoring, so that's really kind of scary. And so I haven't seen a lot of my peers, the people that I've come to rely on to collaborate with in a professional development capacity. And speaking of professional development, the Professional Development Office has recently denied funding requests to pay faculty and staff speakers at the Open Studios. So along with that, and along with what we've been hearing about the English Language Learners Lab, and is part of, this seems to be part of like a bigger discussion about how adjunct faculty are integrated into this college in a professional manner. And so I have a resolution created that if it's impossible to vote on today, that's fine. I at least wanted to bring copies of it, and I sent it to...
I think you emailed it.
Yes,
me, yeah.
yes.
And see if I can find it.
I was unaware of the sort of procedures that go along with these kinds of task force creation protocols, and making a motion and filling out the form that goes with the motion and everything. But this is a fairly urgent issue because our whole work has been disrupted severely by what's going on. So if it were possible today, I would make a motion to resolve to create an adjunct faculty task force that researches the ways that this college works to integrate their faculty into essential support services in a professional way. And I would, if it would help to, if it would help make people confident in it, I would just read it to you because it's short. So.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up. I'm sorry. He
Thank you.
emailed me this morning, and I've been traveling from campuses, so I haven't had an opportunity to get it up yet.
And I have 50 copies right here.
Okay, you can pass them out if you'd like while I finagle computers up here. Try this again. Michael Delaney?
Yeah, I'd like to offer a correction to something that Andy just said.
Okay.
It is not true that the Professional Development Office has denied payment to people who are participating in doing presentations for Open Studios. In fact, that office, my office, is going to approve them. And I'm wondering where Andy got that information from.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. I can't sign in. I know, I'm trying to sign her out. Sorry. Yeah. Let's see, Firefox. I don't know what that is.
You need .ecc.edu.
I tried. Let me try Edge. I'm running out of browsers. Let's just go. Oh, well, there's nothing fancy on my page anyway.
No, but that's why you have problems other people do that.
Oh. All right, well. I have no idea what's in my inbox.
Dangerous.
Would you like me to read it?
Hang on. I think I got it, right? Okay, so I have it up, and everybody has a copy. Andy has asked for a motion. Is there a second? Michael Rio? Is there discussion on the resolution? Derek?
I would suggest that after we get some of the issues out, after we have this discussion, that we, I would suggest that, or move that we refer this to the faculty caucus and let them be the point persons for starting this task force.
Okay. Sabrina?
Some of the issues that Andy brought up, although I'm very cognizant of some of the issues concerning the adjunct faculty, they actually are issues where the academic side of the house is losing some control over the tutoring labs. And the tutoring labs have been put under some sort of new director of tutoring, which seems to be more of a student services kind of thing. And so the staffing of the labs is being pushed back on in certain ways. And some of the things that Derek brought up earlier, like for example, we're no longer allowed to give makeup exams in the lab, which is not just affecting ESL students, it's affecting all students. And so that's an issue that's interlocking that may also need to be addressed.
Okay, so we have a motion in the discussion to move to Faculty Caucus of the Senate. Michael Delaney?
If I understood Derek's motion correctly, he was suggesting continuing discussion. Mm-hmm. Maybe you could make that motion later. That's a motion to refer to committee? After we have the discussion. While I've got the chair, I'm supportive of the idea of studying adjunct issues. I think that this particular resolution probably needs some tweaking. It needs to identify what the makeup of such a task force would be and how those people would be appointed. I think also one of the things that we have to be very careful about as a governance body is not to get into labor issues, and compensation is a labor issue. And the College Senate cannot touch that kind of thing. It's right in our bylaws. And what else do I want to say about that? I guess that's it.
Those are two very good points. Yes? You have to talk in the microphone. It's for the stream. should be on.
Can you hear me? Okay, so there are several issues that Andy did bring up, and one clearly something that Michael addressed is the budget. There is a tutoring budget that I have been asked to oversee, and the tutoring budget includes payment for peer tutors, not adjunct faculty. In the past, we did have adjunct faculty performing tutoring duties, and they were paid at the same rate that tutors were, which was minimum wage, which is now up to $10.40 an hour. That has now moved, and some faculty, adjunct faculty, are being allowed to tutor at the rate, the ISS rate of $30 an hour. That does not come out of the tutoring budget, though. However, having said that, with the way the budgets were set up for personnel, we have allowed some adjunct faculty to tutor at $30 an hour, but where this money is coming from, we're not clear on. And we could be told at any point that the money has to stop. So having said that, that's one issue with the, that's one economic issue. As far as Andy saying that this is impacting his particular salary, there was a delay in the submission of his paperwork, and that had nothing to do with his being approved. That did have something to, having to do with his being approved, but it had nothing to do with the administrative end. It was a delay in the initial paperwork being submitted. So another point was brought up about makeup exams, which I believe these are separate issues. And after much discussion last semester, it was determined that students would not be sent to the Learning Center for makeup exams, as it's a distraction to students who are being tutored and does not provide an environment conducive to appropriate exam conditions, for example, quiet, lack of distraction, appropriate proctoring, and to avoid cheating. So it's really felt that what's necessary is a testing facility for makeup exams to be overseen by, and in the meantime, it should be overseen by the faculty member and/or academic departments. In the Learning Center, our priorities must be to provide the best possible service to the students coming in for tutoring, and like I said, not having that disrupted by having someone sent for a makeup exam.
Okay, thank you. Is there more discussion on it? And I would also like to caution everyone that this is turning into labor issues, and we are not a labor issue board. We are a shared governance board, and whether paperwork and hours and things like that, that is not our purview. But one more point on the discussion, Michael Rio.
I think to bring this back to academics, that one of the concerns and the urgency with this resolution that's being raised is that in the past, in order to deliver curriculum and curriculum support to students, that has been the purview of academic units. And as an academic concern, I believe that this body should be addressing the concerns that Andrew has raised in his resolution. And I would say that we're not concerned with the administration or labor management end, but really how this is affecting our academics and academic units in directing students to professional support outside of the classroom and offering and integrating opportunity for adjunct faculty in those academic units.
Michael?
I really do think that this resolution needs better clarity as to the charge of the proposed task force. The way the charge is written in this resolution, it implies overall examination of, methods to integrate the majority of the adjunct faculty into a professional environment, blah, blah, blah. But what's been talked about has been tutoring issues. It sounds to me like two different task forces, and I think that has to be clarified.
John Dana?
Michael, you made a comment, and you made a comment previous to that. Were you speaking in favor of it or against this issue?
I don't think I was doing either.
I think the issue at point is that in its current state, the resolution is unclear, and there are some lines that are blurred between labor and governance, and it needs to be tweaked and clarified before we can bring it to a positive vote. So I'm going to take Derek.
Is this the appropriate time to?
I think so. Is there further discussion on the resolution as it currently stands? Okay, Derek?
Okay, so I would move that we refer this to Faculty Caucus to clarify and this issue, and then they can report back to the Senate after they work it out. This is too big a venue to work this out.
Okay.
I think the speaker.
You have to be recognized by the chair.
Sorry.
You still have to be recognized by the chair. I need a second on Derek's motion before we can have discussion.
Sorry.
Thank you. A second is there. Discussion on the motion. Andy.
Oh, I just wanted to thank the speaker and this governance body for taking this issue at such a short notice. That's all.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to move this to Faculty Caucus of the Senate for some tweaking and clarification? Okay, so we are not prepared with clickers for this today. So we are going to do a vote of the majority, and I'm just going to call it out loud and use my math skills. So if you vote in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye. Everybody's clear that we're voting on the motion to refer to committee,
right?
Not on the original motion.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Motion for vote for no. Abstain. Okay. So the motion carries. So we're going to refer this back to Faculty Caucus of the Senate, and we'll probably see it in another format at the November meeting. Is there any other new business? CPD. Oh, sorry.
I just real quick, we had a chair retreat last Friday. It went very well. I encourage any department chair is in the department that has a chair to come to the next one, which will be on November 15th, noon to 4 at New York State United Teachers, 270 SJ Road, Williamsville, New York, 14213. And I want to mention that I am working on a project jointly with Communication Arts to get some student-made, and I've talked with Paula Sandy about this, and we're collaborating, get some student-made YouTube videos about some of the interesting and excellent things that our faculty, our staff, our various people here at SUNY Erie are doing. And I want help with this. I want people to make suggestions about good subjects for such videos, and I really want to get this stuff out there. I think it's important to improve the image of the institution and of our faculty and staff. So please help me out with this.
Thank you. Erickson?
Just to finish up on the ILO rubrics, hopefully those will be attached with that email for everyone for input for this meeting. The timeline then is that in November, we'll seek additional feedback from each of the senators, and then the hope is to vote on those at the December meeting. So I wanted to give everyone a heads up.
All right, beautiful. Thank you very much. And then I would also like to just remind everybody that Friday, October 12th is the very last day that you can register to vote in the November elections. So if you want to vote in the November elections, October 12th, 3 days from today is your day. I've been telling my students, you tell your students. And with that, it is 3:56 and still 84 degrees outside. Everybody have a lovely day, and I'll see you in November.